Hello, everyone, and welcome to the August 2022 Participant Town Hall. Great to have you here, and thanks for so many excellent questions. Dr. Ann Hathaway, good to have you as always. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Dale. Good to be here.
Lots of good things to discuss, and I just want to mention a couple things at the beginning here before we get started with these questions. First thing is about fraud in research, and so there has been a lot of news recently on potential fraud in Alzheimer's research. This came about originally from some work that came out of Cassava Sciences, and a couple of people felt that this was there were a lot of red flags around some of the presentation of the science. And they shorted the stock, and then, perhaps unfairly made a lot of money on both blowing the whistle and buying the stock and shorting it, which is, I think, a little bit unfortunate. But they did then have someone who is an excellent researcher, Dr. Schrag, at Vanderbilt University, who spent months going through everything. And very interestingly, he then went back and not only looked at the Cassava work and felt that there were definite red flags and concerns about the way they had presented the data, and felt that there could be fraud involved. And then now the DOJ, the Department of Justice, is actually looking into this further. So this is a significant issue. But Dr. Schrag took one step further. He then went to the work that this came from and said, well, this was based on some highly influential work from the early 2000s, which came out of University of Minnesota, from a professor I've known for 40 years, who's actually a brilliant researcher and neurologist, and her postdoctoral fellow. And the question was really about whether the fellow had presented these data incorrectly and whether they were actually reliable data. And again, he found that there were a lot of red flags raised, not only in their very influential paper, but in multiple follow-up papers, and there had been tens of millions of dollars from the NIH to support this. So it's a real mess right now. People are still looking into this. But of course, it affects all of us because it changes influence, it changes the thought about what's actually causing the problem. The idea of that particular group is that all of Alzheimer's is based on one molecule, which is called A beta star 56. And that when you have this specific form of A beta, that's what's giving you the pathology of Alzheimer's disease. And they showed that this is, in fact, a toxic molecule. And then the question is, is that the problem? So the big issue here goes back to a very interesting Chinese story, actually, where the emperor, who's getting old, says, I want to have a successor, and I want it to be someone who's a good person and who will rule the realm very effectively. So he takes 7 or 8 young people and gives them a seed. Each one gets a seed and says, come back in 1 year. I want to see the plants that you've been able to grow with these seeds. And so, of course, they come back in a year, and each one has this more amazing plant than the other, just these incredible plants. And the last little guy says, I'm so sorry. I planted it, nothing grew. And the emperor says, you're the next emperor. The seeds I gave you had nothing. They could not grow. So all these people are liars, and you're the only one who's actually honest. So when you have a theory of Alzheimer's that is incorrect, anything that works is going to have either coercion, falsification of data, red flags, something, because you're just not going to get results that are really helpful. We're seeing it with aducanumab. We saw it with bapineuzumab. We saw it with solanezumab. Again and again and again. The theory simply is not predictive. So anytime you see positive results, your antenna should go up thinking, what actually happened here? And with respect to the A beta star 56, we all know that multiple forms of A beta have toxicity. Of course they do. A beta is like a belt tightening CEO. They're saying, look, there are problems here. You've got to downsize because you don't have enough support for this complex system. So the response is get rid of the belt tightening CEO. Well, that doesn't work. There are all sorts of other factors at play here. You're going to have problems. So the idea of just let's get rid of them earlier, let's get rid of them later, let's get rid of more, let's get rid of less, it just doesn't work. This disease is about far more than A beta. So we'll probably see more of these issues, and we'll certainly see something on the cassava sciences from the DOJ when they come to a conclusion there.